My life was a library of carefully curated moments. As an archivist for the city's historical society, my days were spent in the quiet, climate-controlled hush of the past, handling brittle documents and cataloging photographs with meticulous care. My apartment was a reflection of my profession, minimalist, organized, every object in its designated place. My books were arranged by genre, then alphabetically by author. My pantry was a study in labeled containers. I found peace and order in predictability. It was a sanctuary from the messy, chaotic world outside. The ultimate expression of my love for order was my Bali trip. It was not a whim, it was a project. For 2 years I had planned it. I had saved, I had researched, I had crafted an itinerary so perfect it was a work of art. A 10-day solo journey through Ubud's serene rice paddies and ancient temples. I had booked a small, private villa with its own plunge pool. I had reservations at specific restaurants known for their authentic cuisine. I had even mapped out which yoga classes I would attend and on which days. This trip was my reward for a lifetime of being the responsible one, the quiet one, the one who always followed the rules. My sister Leela did not follow rules. She floated through life on a cloud of charisma and chaos, leaving a trail of broken hearts, unpaid bills, and exasperated family members in her wake. She was my polar opposite. Where I was structure, she was impulse. Where I was saving, she was spending. She was 2 years younger than me, Budo her parents, still treaded hair lika tenager, constantly bailing her out of whatever mess she'd charmingly gotten herself into, and the older sister was always expected to be the bigger person, to forgive, to forget, to understand. In the weeks leading up to my trip, Leela was a constant presence. She'd show up at my apartment with coffee full of unusual interest in my plans. A solo trip, Anna. You're so brave. She'd chirped one afternoon, looking at the laminated itinerary I had taped to my fridge. 10 whole days of just you and your thoughts. Wow. She asked to see my new travel backpack, my packing cubes, the special quick-dry towels I'd bought. I just can't believe you're finally doing something fun, she'd said, giving me a hug. You deserve it. At the time, I thought her interest was a rare sign of sisterly support. In hindsight, it was reconnaissance. The night before my flight, I did one last check of my carry-on. Passport, boarding pass printout, hotel and visa confirmations. I had placed them all in a crisp, blue travel wallet and tucked it into the front pocket of my backpack. Now I unzipped the pocket to give them one final, satisfying look. The pocket was empty. A cold fizz of confusion went through me. That wasn't right. I knew I had put it there. I emptied the entire backpack onto my living room floor. Nothing. I started to search the apartment, my movements becoming more frantic with every passing minute. I tore through my desk drawers, my closet, under the sofa cushions. Nothing. The blue travel wallet containing my passport, my identity, my entire meticulously planned trip, had vanished. Panic began to set in, a frantic, screaming bird in my chest. I sank onto the floor, my heart hammering against my ribs. It was gone. It was all gone. And then, a sickening thought cut through the panic. Leela, her sudden interest, her questions, the hug. I grabbed my phone, my fingers fumbling as I dialed her number. It went to voicemail. I called again. Voicemail. I sent a text per my thumbs shaking. Leela, this isn't funny. Where is my passport? No reply. I tried to tell myself I was wrong. She was impulsive, she was reckless, but she wouldn't do this. This was too cruel. This was a line even she wouldn't cross. Wouldn't she? The denial crumbled an hour later. My phone buzzed with a notification. It was a message from a mutual friend, Sarah. The message contained a single screenshot. It was from Instagram, from Leela's close friend's story, the private account she used for her more scandalous adventures. The picture was of my blue travel wallet and my passport, sitting on an airplane tray table next to a glass of champagne. Lila's manicured hand was giving a peace sign. Her hair, which had been dark brown 2 days ago, was now a brassy blonde. A cheap wig or a bad dye job. Enough of a change to hopefully get past a hurried airport agent. And the caption, written in a bubbly, carefree font, shattered the last of my illusions. It read, "Time for an adventure I could never afford. Bali bound, bitches." I stared at the screen at the picture of my stolen life being flaunted by my own sister. The panic inside me died, extinguished by a sudden, glacial calm. The screaming bird in my chest went silent. The trip was gone. My vacation was gone. But the meticulous, organized, rule-following archivist in me was not. She had just been given a new project, a project that would require all of my skills for research, documentation, and follow-through. My sister wanted an adventure she could never afford. I was going to make sure she got one. My parents' reaction was exactly what I expected, and it was the gasoline on the fire of my cold rage. I called them the next morning, my voice devoid of emotion as I explained the situation. My mother's response was a long weary sigh. Oh Leela, she'd said the words a familiar refrain of resigned disappointment. She just doesn't think, Anna. She thought enough to steal my passport, my tickets, and my money. I replied, my voice dangerously quiet. This isn't a mistake, Mom, this is grand larceny. An identity theft. Don't be so dramatic. My father chimed in on the extension, his voice full of the usual bluster he employed when defending Leela. I'm sure she intends to pay you back. She probably just wanted a little break. You know how stressed. She's been stressed. My sister's version of stress was deciding which bar to go to on a Tuesday night. I had been working 60-hour weeks for a year to save for this trip, a trip she had stolen without a second thought. So what do you want us to do, Anna? My mother asked, her tone shifting into one of martyrdom. She's already there. We'll talk to her when she gets back. You'll just have to cancel your plans. I'm sure the airline will give you a credit. Cancel my plans. Be the bigger person. It was the story of my life. I was always the one expected to adapt to absorb the cost of Leela's chaos. My feelings, my plans, my money, were always secondary to her whims. No, I said, and the word felt like a steel door slamming shut in my mind. I will not be canceling my plans. What does that mean? My father demanded. It means I will be handling this myself, I said. Please don't contact her. Don't send her money. Don't do anything. Anna, don't you dare do anything foolish. My mother warned. She's your sister. Yes, I said. She is. I hung up the phone. The conversation had solidified my resolve. They would not help me. They would, as always, protect her. They had left me no choice but to escalate. My own family had abdicated their responsibility, so I would turn to a higher authority. The last line of the letter was scrawled so hard the pen had torn the paper. I will never forgive you for this. I know, I thought, folding the letter neatly and placing it in a new archival box. A box I labeled Lila. Forgiveness was never part of the plan. The trial was a quiet affair, barely a blip in the international news. With the evidence so overwhelmingly against her, she was convicted. The sentence was lighter than it could have been, thanks to my parents' expensive lawyer. Not the years in prison she could have faced, but a year. A full year in a foreign jail, followed by immediate deportation and a permanent ban from ever entering the country again. A year of consequences. My life, in the meantime, had found a new kind of quiet. The angry, vengeful energy that had propelled me for months had dissipated, leaving a calm, empty space in its wake. My relationship with my parents was fractured, perhaps irreparably. We spoke on holidays, our conversations stilted and full of the massive, unspoken thing that lay between us. They were polite. I was polite. But the warmth was gone. I had amputated a part of my family to save myself, and I was learning to live with the phantom limb. I took a vacation, not to Bali. That place was tainted forever, a paradise lost to me as much as it was to her. I went to Switzerland. I rented a small, clean cabin high in the Alps, surrounded by snow-capped peaks and pristine silence. It was the opposite of Bali. It was cool, and orderly, and breathtakingly calm. I spent my days hiking on well-marked trails, reading by the fire, drinking hot tea and watching the snow fall. I didn't have a strict itinerary. For the first time in my life, I just was. One afternoon, standing on a mountain overlook, the air crisp and clean in my lungs, I thought about Leela in her cell. About my parents in their quiet, sad house. I thought about the choice I had made. The archivist in me saw the grim, satisfying logic of it all. An action, and its equal and opposite reaction. A crime, and its meticulously documented punishment. But the woman standing on the mountain just felt a profound aching loneliness. I had one. I had brought the chaos to order. I was safe. I was free. But I was alone. The price of my peace had been my family. And as I looked out at the vast, silent, beautiful world, I knew, with a certainty that was both liberating and terrifying, that it was a price I would pay, over and over again, for the rest of my life. I spent the rest of the day in my quiet, orderly apartment, transforming my grief and anger into action. I was an archivist, My superpower was creating order out of chaos / finding the narrative in a collection of disparate items. Was about to create the most important collection of my life? I created a new folder on my computer desktop. I named it Project Nightingale. After Florence Nightingale, another woman who brought order to a chaotic, foreign hellscape. The first file was a scan of my birth certificate. The second was a scan of Leela's, which I found in a box of old family documents. Different dates, semi-parents irrefutable. The third file was the screenshot from Sarah, evidence of the crime, with a timestamp. Then, I logged into my credit card account, and there it was. A charge from a duty-free shop at JFK, made at the exact time Lila would have been at the gate. Another charge from a taxi service in Denpasar, the capital of Bali. I took meticulous screenshots of everything, highlighting the fraudulent charges. I compiled everything into a single password-protected PDF file. I wrote a cover letter, a statement of facts, detailing the theft in cold, clinical, emotionless language. No accusations of betrayal. No family drama. Just the facts. A stolen passport, a stolen identity, a series of fraudulent transactions. By the time the sun set, I had a case file. A complete, undeniable, professional case file. Leela thought she had run away to a tropical paradise where the rules didn't apply. But she had forgotten who I was. I was the rule keeper. I was the archivist of our family's history. And I was about to add a new, very permanent entry under her name. The first official step felt both monumental and anticlimactic. I walked into my local police precinct, the Project Nightingale file saved on a flash drive in my pocket. The officer at the desk looked at me with bored, tired eyes. "I need to report a theft," I said, my voice as calm as if I were reporting a missing library book. "My passport, credit cards, and travel documents have been stolen." I was led to a small cubicle where a detective named Peterson listened to my story. I laid out the facts, just as I had written them in my statement. I did not use the word sister. I used the words the suspect. "The suspect has used my identity to travel internationally," I explained, handing him the flash drive. "She is currently in Bali, Indonesia. Here is all the documentary evidence I have compiled." Peterson's tired expression shifted to one of grudging respect as he clicked through the PDF. He saw the side-by-side birth certificates, the time-stamped Instagram post, the highlighted credit card statements. He saw a complete open and shut case, gift-wrapped and delivered to his desk. "You're very thorough," he said. He filed the official report for grand larceny and identity theft. He gave me a case number. "We'll put out a bulletin. But honestly, since the suspect is overseas, there's not much we can do from here." "I understand," I said. "I'm not expecting you to. I just need the official report." The police report was just a key. It was the piece of paper I needed to unlock a much bigger, more powerful door. The next morning, I was on the phone with the U.S. Department of State. I navigated the automated menus with practiced patience until I reached a real person. I reported my passport as stolen, providing the police case number. The official on the phone informed me that my passport was now immediately invalidated. It was now a useless document. Or rather, it was a piece of contraband. Anyone attempting to use it could be detained. This was a good start. But it wasn't enough. I needed to be proactive. I needed to reach out to the authorities there. My next call was my masterstroke. I didn't call the Indonesian police. I called the U.S. Embassy in Jakarta. I was eventually connected to a man in the American Citizen Services Unit. I explained the situation again, this time with a new level of urgency. "I have reason to believe a U.S. citizen is currently in your jurisdiction. In Bali, traveling on a fraudulent U.S. passport that has now been reported stolen and invalidated," I said, my voice a mask of civic concern. "I am the victim of this identity theft, and I am concerned about the diplomatic implications of someone using a stolen American passport to illegally enter a foreign country." I was framing it not as a family squabble, but as a matter of international security. I emailed my Project Nightingale file directly to the embassy official. I gave him Detective Peterson's name and number. I gave him my police case number. I connected all the dots for them. The man in Jakarta was silent for a long moment after I finished. "Ma'am," he said, his voice serious. "Thank you for bringing this to our attention. Using a fraudulent passport is an extremely serious offense, both here and in Indonesia. We will look into this immediately. Can you confirm the suspect's location?" "I believe so," I said, logging back into my credit card portal. A new charge had just posted. A charge for over $1,000 from a place called the Viceroy Bali. A quick search revealed it to be one of the most exclusive, luxurious resorts in Ubud, a collection of private villas nestled in the jungle. Of course, Lila was never one for half measures. She's at the Viceroy Bali, I said, spelling the name out for him. Likely in a private villa. Understood, the official replied. We will coordinate with the appropriate local authorities. Please do not be alarmed if you are contacted by them. We take these matters very seriously. I hung up the phone, a strange cold calm settling over me. The gears were in motion. I had activated a vast, impersonal bureaucracy that spanned continents. This was out of my parents' hands now. It was out of my hands. It was in the hands of the US government and the Indonesian National Police. Lila had wanted a vacation from her life, a fantasy where her actions had no consequences. She was sunning herself by a private pool in a tropical paradise, believing she had gotten away with it. She had no idea that her older sister, the boring archivist, had just built her a cage on the other side of the world. And the door was about to swing shut. The week that followed was a masterclass in psychological torment. I went back to work at the Historical Society, the quiet hush of the archives a stark contrast to the storm I had unleashed. I handled centuries-old documents with steady hands. But my mind was a world away, in a luxury villa in Bali. Every buzz of my phone made my heart leap. Every email notification sent a jolt of adrenaline through my veins. The waiting was a special kind of hell. Leela, meanwhile, was documenting her own downfall with cheerful, narcissistic abandon. Sarah, my friend, had agreed to be my reluctant spy, forwarding me screenshots of Leela's ongoing close friend story. It was a slideshow of my stolen life. There was Leela, posing in a bikini I had bought for the trip, by the side of the very plunge pool I had dreamed of for 2 years. Paradise found. The caption read, there she was, at a temple, wearing a sarong, a pensive look on her face. Finding my Zen. Her idea of Zen was committing a felony. There she was, raising a cocktail glass at a beachfront bar. The sunset, a perfect orange blaze behind her. Don't think I'm ever coming home. You have no idea how right you are, I thought, staring at the picture, my fingers tightening around my phone. Each post was another twist of the knife, another log on the fire of my resolve. She felt no remorse. She felt no guilt. She felt nothing but the entitled, hedonistic pleasure of the moment. She was dancing on the ashes of my dreams. Then, on the 5th day, I got the call I'd been half dreading, half praying for. It was my mother. Anna, I just got off the phone with your sister, she began, her voice tight with disapproval. Oh, I said, my voice a placid lake. She said her credit card was declined at a boutique. She was very embarrassed. Anna, did you cancel the card? Yes, Mom, I said calmly. I reported it stolen. Because it was stolen. Well, you could have at least warned us. She snapped. She has no money. What is she supposed to do? She is a 27-year-old woman, I replied, my patience wearing dangerously thin. Perhaps she should have considered that before she stole my identity and flew to the other side of the planet. I told you I was handling this. This is me handling it. This is not handling it, Anna, this is being cruel. My mother cried. She's your sister. She's all alone over there. I was supposed to be all alone over there, I thought. That was the whole point. I have to go, I said, and hung up before she could reply. The call was a signal. The walls were closing in on Lila. Her resources were cut off. Soon, she would have to check out of that fantasy villa. She would have to present my invalidated passport to airport officials. The end was near. 2 days later, I received a short, formal email from my contact at the U.S. Embassy. Ms. Hayes, this is to inform you that we have completed our coordination with local law enforcement in Bali. Regarding the fraudulent use of your U.S. passport, the matter has been resolved. You may be contacted by the Indonesian authorities for a formal statement in the near future. Thank you for your cooperation. The matter has been resolved. The words were so sterile, so bureaucratic. They gave nothing away, and yet they told me everything. It was done. The trap had been sprung. I sat in my silent apartment, the city lights beginning to twinkle outside my window. I thought of Lila, in her paradise. I wondered how it had happened. Did they come for her at the pool, during her morning yoga session? Or did they wait for her at the front desk, as she tried to argue about her declined credit card? A strange, hollow feeling filled my chest. It wasn't triumph, it wasn't joy. It was just the quiet, empty finality of a project completed. I had archived my sister's life, and now all I could do was wait for the fallout. The phone call from my mother came at 3 o'clock in the morning. I was awake. I had been staring at the ceiling for hours, waiting. Her voice was a sound I had never heard before, a high, thin shriek of pure panic and hysteria. "She's been arrested." "Oh my God, Anna, they arrested her. What did you do? What did you do?" I sat up in bed, the cold calm descending over me again like a shroud. "What happened, Mom?" I asked, my voice steady. "They came to her hotel room," she wailed, her words tumbling over each other in a frantic, incoherent rush. "The Indonesian police. They dragged her out." She called me from the police station. "They're saying she committed a crime. Something about her passport. Anna, this is your fault. You have to fix this. Fix this." The mantra of my entire life. Leela creates the chaos, Anna fixes it. Not this time. "I can't fix this, Mom," I said, my voice like ice. "I am the victim of a crime. Leela is the one who broke the law. Several laws, in fact, in 2 different countries. She's your sister," she screamed, the sound so raw it made the phone crackle. "She could go to prison in Indonesia. Do you have any idea what that's like?" "She should have thought of that before she stole my life," I replied. The conversation devolved from there. She called me cruel, heartless, vindictive. She said I had always been jealous of Lila. My father got on the phone and roared at me, telling me I had brought shame on the family. That I had destroyed my sister's life over a stupid vacation. I listened to it all, a silent spectator to their grief and rage. They didn't care that I had been wronged. They didn't care that I had been stolen from, lied to, and gaslighted. Their only concern was for Lila, the perpetrator. The one who was finally, for the first time in her pampered, selfish life, facing the consequences of her own actions. "I am done," I said, my voice low but unwavering, cutting through my father's tirade. "I am done fixing her messes. I am done being the bigger person. This is her chaos. Let her live in it." I hung up. I turned my phone off, and I sat there in the dark, the silence of my apartment a welcome relief. The next few days, the story started to leak out, first in whispers among friends, then in a more concrete form. Sarah sent me a link to an article in an Indonesian English-language newspaper. The headline read, "American Tourist Arrested at Luxury Bali Resort for Passport Fraud." The article detailed how a 27-year-old woman, traveling on a U.S. passport, had been taken into custody. It said the arrest came after a tip-off from the U.S. Embassy. It quoted a local police chief who stated that passport and visa violations were taken very seriously in Indonesia. There was no picture of her, but I didn't need one. I knew. My parents tried to mount a rescue mission. They hired an expensive international lawyer. They flew to Bali, a trip they could ill afford. They were trying to do for Leela what they had always done, make the problem go away with money and influence. But they were not in America anymore. They were in a foreign country, with a different legal system, one that did not bend to the tearful pleas of heartbroken parents. Lila was not a misunderstood child there. She was a foreign national who had committed a serious crime against their state. The days turned into weeks. My parents came home, exhausted and defeated. Lila was still in custody, awaiting trial. They had drained their savings account. And all they had managed to do was ensure she was in a slightly less horrifying detention center than the one she had started in. The silence from my parents was absolute. They did not call me. They did not text me. In their eyes, I was the one who had put her in that cage. I had become the villain of my own story. And in a strange way, I was okay with that. I had chosen my own well-being over my sister's destructive whims. I had chosen order over chaos. And I would live with the consequences of that choice. I had to. It was the only way to survive. Months later, a letter arrived. The envelope was thin and flimsy, covered in foreign stamps and postmarks. It had been smuggled out of the Karabokan prison, a place I had read about with a morbid, detached curiosity. It was from Leela. Her handwriting, once a loopy, cheerful scrawl, was now tight and angry. The letter was not an apology. It was a diatribe. A venomous, rambling torrent of rage and disbelief. She called me a monster. A cold, heartless bitch. She accused me of being jealous of her, of wanting to ruin her life because she was the pretty one, the popular one. She detailed the horrors of her daily existence, the heat, the filth, the food, the other prisoners. She described it all in graphic detail, as if she hoped the images would haunt me. But as I read the letter, I felt nothing. No guilt, no pity. The words were just ink on paper, the angry buzzing of a trapped wasp. She still didn't get it. In her mind, she was the victim. I was the villain who had unjustly punished her for the crime of wanting to have a little fun. There was no self-awareness, no glimmer of remorse. She had learned nothing.